So one thing that I do want to do before we get into today's lesson is to quickly go over last week's Shakespeare puzzle. Let me go ahead and congratulate Group 1. Keaton, Ashley, Lauren, Finn, Josh, Dorian, you did an excellent job. Week two's Shakespeare puzzle was from the opening act of Romeo and Juliet, Act 1, Scene 1, lines 1 to 24. And we begin with a pair of Capulet servants who are having a humorous conversation, and they get into a fight with the Montagues. So we see Samson begin by saying, Gregory, on my word, will not carry coals. And so that is correct, Josh. We're not going to be insulted easily. Carrying coals in Elizabethan England was considered to be a menial, degrading kind of a task. And so by saying we will not carry coals basically means that we're not going to let ourselves be disrespected. Gregory goes ahead and replies for no, for then we should be colliers. Colliers is the name of the profession, the people who would go ahead and transport coal back and forth in the village or in the city. And so Gregory means no, if we took this kind of disrespect, then we would be people who are in habit of doing so. We would belong to the profession of colliers. Samson replies, I mean, and we being collar will draw. So if we're going to be in anger, collar means anger, we're going to draw. Draw, of course, refers to drawing the sword. And Gregory replies, I, while you live, draw your neck out of collar. That's correct, Ashley. While you're alive, it's best to draw your neck out of the hangman's noose, avoid trouble. Gregory seems to be tamping down on Samson and says, yes, defend your honor, but don't act so rashly that it would get you executed or get you on the hangman's noose. And so something to notice is this kind of internal musicality and rhythm that Shakespeare creates with these words that start off with similar sounds, with the C sound. Coals, collier, collar, collar. So again, there's this wordplay that Shakespeare is doing even in the speech of common folk who are using these very common street expressions that creates this, again, this musicality, this internal rhythm. Samson says, I strike quickly being moved, and actually that's correct. When I'm provoked, when my feelings are affected, I hit fast. Gregory replies, but thou art not quickly moved to strike. And Keaton, that's absolutely correct. You're not easily provoked to fight. There's also the sense that, yeah, you're all talk, but you don't really act that much. Like you'll kind of run your mouth, but when you are, when push comes to shove, you're not really that ready with the sword in a fight. Samson says, a dog of the house of Montague moves me, right? And Keaton, that's correct. A member of the Montague family angers me. Gregory replies, to move is to stir, and to be valiant is to stand. Therefore, if thou art moved, thou runnest. So it really does seem that Gregory's poking fun at Samson at Samson's expense, just kind of like egging him on and needling him. And so he says, to move is to stir, right? There's the wordplay on move, being moved, your feelings being affected, and literally to physically move. So he says, to move is to move, to like literally move and change your location. But to be valiant means to stand your ground. So therefore, if you are moved, that means you're kind of cowardly and you're running away from the fight. So again, he's kind of needling Samson on a little bit. Samson says, a dog of that house shall move me to stand. I will take the wall of any man or maid of Montague's. Samson doesn't really seem that bright. Like he just seems to be like a braggart. He keeps on trying to flex in terms of like how masculine he is by being so ready to turn to violence. And so, Lauren, that's completely correct. I'm not going to stand down from anybody. Gregory goes ahead and says, thou showest thee a weak slave, for the weakest goes to the wall. So this actually means that in London, in Elizabethan London, you would have a street or road, and then you'd have the wall right on the side of it. And so when you have people walking on the street, a party of two or more people, the weaker of the party would be closer to the wall to avoid getting splashed or getting jostled by the traffic. So for instance, like if the party has a woman or a child, then the party considered to be weaker would be kind of walking on the side of the wall. And so he's saying that then Gregory is basically saying that this action shows you to be a weak slave, a weak person, because the weaker of the party walking tends to be closer to the wall. Samson, again, doesn't seem very bright, doesn't seem to understand that he's being mocked. 'Tis true, and therefore women, being the weaker vessels, are ever thrust to the wall. Therefore I will push Montague's men from the wall and thrust his maids to the wall. So there's this kind of almost rapey implication that I'm gonna push them from the wall, the men from the wall, and press the Montague women against the wall, to again violate them in some way. That's completely correct, Dorian. Gregory says, quarrels between our masters and us, they're men. Um, that is absolutely correct, Dorian, right? Samson says, "'Tis all one. I will show myself a tyrant. When I have fought with the men, I will be civil with the maids. I will cut off their heads." So yes, absolutely, yeah, Finn, that's correct. I'm going to be nice with the maids, with the women, with the implication that um, I'm going to basically rape them essentially. Yes, to be civil, like in sense of like showering my attentions upon them, but then I will cut off their heads. That's a reference to cutting off their maiden heads or to take their virginity. So once again, Samson just seems to be on steroids, rapey, threatening, bragging, and Gregory is just maybe seems a little bit calmer, a little bit more mature, seems to be poking fun at Samson and trying to calm him down a little bit. Let's go ahead and return to the rest of the presentation and gender from this point.